framework is going to automatically generate a class which derives from the framework-defined page base and razor page base. And it also provides some very useful properties like UML helpers, HTML helpers, and most importantly, it exposes a model property, which is the view model that we define. And the view model has a bunch of VM properties that's going to get data binding to the view, and is updated using our action methods. And the action methods has its own convention of naming, and at runtime, it's going to use reflection to match to the action method it's going to use, and we're going to talk about that later. And also, in our view model, we're going to manipulate data model, which is our business logic and data that gets into the database. So the way that the HTTP request gets handled is that whenever you receive a HTTP request, it's going to route to a specific page that you define, and later those parameters that's specified in your action methods is going to get bind to values in your HTTP request. And we are going to look at in Visual Studio. Oh, it's not showing. All right. So here is my homepage for the repository. At the top of it, you see a razor page directive that specifies the route that this page can handle. And it must have an owner, a repository name, and optionally accepts a name of the branch. And here, the model directive specifies the view model we're going to use. And the index model is what we're going to use for the view model. And we're just going to take a look at the index model. So the index model, as you can see, we have a constructor injection. And also here is the action method. So the action method, by convention, is named onGetAsync, which is going to handles the HTTP GET request. And notice there's three parameters, and the middleware is going to bind the value according to the name of the parameters. It's going to bind the values in the HTTP request into the parameters, so it's available when we're trying to handle this HTTP message. And next we're talking about validation. So what validation does is that you have some models, you have data that you want to have some rules on it. For instance, if the user is registering, you want the email to have, be a valid email address. So you want that. So you definitely want validation on the server side before you store that information into your database. You want to validate it. And optionally, it's recommended that you do a client-side validation too, because that saves time. So it doesn't need another round trip if the data is not valid. And we're going to show a live demo of validation right now. at the home page and we want to sign up. So, for instance, let's just try enter some, nonsense on this email address. And notice there's the client-side validation works immediately, which is based on the jQuery validation. And also we have remote validation. For instance, I'm entering a username which is supposedly already in the database, and you can see it's going to tell me that the A username is already in use. So what happens is the front end is going to send a JS call to the back end, which is going to reply a JSON result telling you if the username is already existed or not. And of course, if the whole state of the form is invalid, you will fail to post it. It's going to intercept it. So let's look at the code. And Deps.NET Core provides a very nice tag helper. As validation is, so you code your validation logic at your server side, and you use this tag helper. It's going to automatically set up your client-side validation logic, so you don't have to code the same validation logic everywhere. So how you set up your validation logic on the server side is you do this in your data model. Notice we have this data annotation, and like each property is decorated by the data annotation attribute that specifies provides some default validation logic, and of course you could use your own custom validation logic. ASP.NET Core also provides a very nice way of separating your code and make it reusable anywhere. So most importantly is one of the layout page, which is provides top level template for all of your Razor pages. It contains those common HTML elements to define, and also you have partial view, which is not a Razor page, but it's used in Razor pages. It renders some common HTML elements, and view component is another way to use a usable component. Difference is it's very similar to partial view, but the difference is that it's more powerful. It can have its own view model, and so it can also access database and so on. So let's take a look at our.
So this is supposed to be cross-platform.
Yes, it is cross-platform.
Well, you haven't demonstrated that. I'm looking at C# code, and so the question is, how does the framework make that work on Linux?
So it's the cross-platform things handled by the framework thing. It's like ASP.NET Core itself is cross-platform.
Well, ASP.NET Core is a specification for the fundamental part of ASP.NET. It's ASP.NET with some of the bells and whistles removed to make it smaller and slimmer. And But that doesn't mean that it'll run anywhere.
Uh,
So you gotta be using, you or the framework has to be using something like Xamarin under the covers, or,
no,
you know,
It's-
what I expected, I've never used apps.NET Core.
Mhm.
So what I was kind of expecting was a setup very like ASP.NET, but the code running in JavaScript or something, but that isn't the case. You're running C#.
No.
So you've got to be using, you know, there is a C# compiler for Linux.
Yep.
The mono C# compiler. And I think Xamarin uses that, but I'm not sure, so.
No, I think you're having a misconception about .NET Core. So .NET Core is cross-platform, but it's not based on Mono or Xamarin. It's a standalone. It's a whole different implementation by Microsoft itself. So it's not based on the other implementations like Xamarin or
Well,
Mono.
so we have to build all of the ASP code on Windows.
No, that's not it. So I will show you later that.
Okay, I need to know a little more. What you've done is shown me what's essentially ASP.NET capability running on Windows. And you've
Yep.
got the title cross-platform, and I want to know a little more about how that really happens.
So, like I said, it's like implementation detail. Let's, the ASP.NET Core itself is cross-platform. So I'm going to show later that it works just fine. You don't have to change almost a single line of your code for it to run on Mac. It's absolutely portable. Nothing in your code, almost nothing. Your code needs to be changed, and it works just fine. And I promise you.
I'm skeptical, so you're
Yeah,
gonna-
it's
you're gonna need to
definitely
convince me.
workable. It's definitely workable. I'll get to that demo
Okay.
on Mac.
Okay.
It's absolutely workable. So where am I? Yes, I'm just going to show the layout page. So you can see the layout page is very simple. It defines some common headers and the body. Here I have rendered this partial view. It is the navigation bar that's shared across all pages, and the render body just renders a specific user page. So next, we're going to talk about Entity Framework Core, which is the data access technology that's based on Entity Framework. Basically, it provides you a very convenient way of accessing your database using .NET objects. And you could use a link and everything with it. It's really convenient. So how do you access data using EF Core is that you have model, which basically consists of entity class. So for instance, say we have like student, we have course. So the student, we create a student's entity class, which has like names and everything, and most notably it has navigation property that's linked to other entities. So when you retrieve a student, and the relative enrollment information is also retrieved.
Your voice keeps trailing off so that we can hardly hear what you're saying.
Right.
So keep talking to the back row.
Okay.
When you had that mental model, that we could hear you.
Sure. And apart from entity class, we also have database context, which represents a session with the database. And I'm just going to show the code to you, how this works. So here is my application database context. So apart from the user information tables, it also has three tables, which stores like repository information, tag, and tagging information. And for instance, the repository tag, the repository information is defined like this. Is also have data annotation, attributes decorated. Like name and path and so on. And finally, we have tags, which is just a series of tags that's associated with this repository. So now I'm going to show you a complete demo of this project. Basically, we start by creating a new account, like B user. Okay, just create. So when we successfully create an account, we're going to be redirected to the home page. As you can see, we're signed in as B user. Of course, we can sign out, and now we're going to create a new repository. Just going to name it like new repo. For instance, description, create repository. So here is generally the repository homepage you're going to see on GitHub. You're familiar. And notice there's only the code tab is implemented, and every tab, other tabs are like just dummy tabs. Those numbers are hard-coded, but everything else is just information is retrieved from the file system and the database. Since there's it's an empty repository, so for demonstration, I'm going to show you an existing repository. So this is the repository of libgit2, which is one of my dependencies of this project. As you can see, we have a list of directories and files and directories, and down here we have a README markdown that's dynamically rendered at client side. We can navigate, of course, to any directories. So, and of course we can, take a look at any files. Notice it's all syntax highlighted. And also we can edit this file. But notice we have access denied because the logged in user is not the owner of the repository. So you don't have the privilege to edit any files in it. So you will be prompted here, and instead we're gonna log out and log into the user account. Okay, I'm just gonna open a random file, and now we can edit. So it's also syntax highlighted, and also we can edit this file and preview the changes. It's gonna dynamically show have client-side diff. Every time, of course, you can like delete something. It's gonna diff dynamically on your client side. And you could commit the changes you make. Delete. And you can see you're redirected back to the edited file just fine. And also, like you have many branches, you might want to switch branches, and you could absolutely do that. So I'm just going to switch to another branch. Now we're on a different branch. So it all works very good. And to show the cross-platform part, I'm just going to use another machine to do that.
Cross-platform to me doesn't mean that I can view the web page from Mac.
I mean, it's like it's built on Mac. It runs on Mac. It's like the Mac OS can be your server. You can run on Windows, can run on Mac and Linux.
So you can create a ASP.NET Core project and using Entity Framework Core project, just like you've built, you could create on the Mac.
Yeah, everything.
And write all the code. So
Just
you can write
write
C#.
Write C# and
Mac.
it runs.
Where's
Yeah.
that compiler coming from?
The compiler, so when you're running on Mac, it has, like a Mac version of C# compiler when you're running on
So
Windows.
it's not mono?
It's not. It's definitely, it's a separate
So this
implementation.
is, Microsoft has ported their C# compiler to Macs.
Exactly. I mean, it's not based on any other implementation, but it's a whole new implementation that's cross-platform.
They didn't have to port the compiler. They didn't have to port the compiler. They just wrote a runtime for .NET in Mac. And the C# compiler is written in C#, so it just runs on Mac if there's a runtime.
Well, okay, so you're saying they ported the CLR
Yeah.
to, that makes sense. Okay.
So, yeah, I'm just going to show.
Actually, they did have to port the compiler to do, if we're gonna do what I said, we're gonna take ASP.NET Core and Entity Framework Core, and we're gonna build code on a Mac.
The compiler just takes C# code, outputs IO. It doesn't have to.
So,
have
yeah,
any
the intermediate language
Right.
is independent. So,
Yeah, of
like
course it is.
after
Of
the
course it is.
intermediate
Of
language,
course it is.
yep. So it compiles into binary. That part,
So,
they've done it.
Okay, provided that the C# compiler is written in C#.
Which is
Mm. It's a new, like, it's Rosalind, so it's a new
The-
compiler.
for the past.
Okay, the
Well,
CLR itself is written in C++, I know, but the compiler was written in C#. Okay, then all that works.
Yep. So,
That's clear.
I mean, as you can see,
So that's easy, all they gotta do is port the CLR to.
yeah, the code, you almost don't need to change a line anything with it. So another thing I want to show is that before you see, like, I'm loading that page, the directory is very slow. That's because, there's a bug in libgit2 which prevents me from retrieving, if you're familiar with GitHub, those are the latest commit message that's related to this particular file directory. But there's a bug in it, so that prevents me from retrieving that message. So I will have to use the command line get. So the I/O is pretty slow on Windows, and I've done some optimizations on Mac version, which uses the TurboLink. So it's like front-end JavaScript library that so what it does is that you click any link, you create any link, it's gonna look in your browser cache. If it's in your cache, it's gonna prevent you from following that link. It's gonna intercept that and first load that image, cached image from your browser, so that it could seems that your page has already loaded, but it's actually still making that request. So like it becomes fast, and I'm going back. You can see it's really fast. It's showing a cached version, and when the whole thing loads, it's gonna like merge the body and the header and show you the new version of it. So and I think that's all of my presentation today. Is there any?
So let's go back to your. I'd like to get a summary of your milestones. So go back to the milestone chart.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So now, are you still planning on these optional requirements?
I think I'll try, but that depends. Like, I'm not sure how far I can go
Okay.
on these optional things, but
Social networking sounds like it might be very difficult to do.
yeah, it's kind of it's like
But the collaboration probably is a reasonable thing to expect to do between now and the end of the semester, maybe.
yeah, because at this stage it still act like private repository, and here we actually like allow multiple users to interact.
Yeah, but a lot of that functionality is really Git functionality.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
yours, so you
It's not-
just have to manipulate that Git functionality to make that work, right?
Yeah, and also the pages and everything, but it's not
Yeah.
like very like collaboration is not here yet. So.
Okay. So, have you used ASP.NET proper or just ASP.NET Core?
Core, just core.
You've never used ASP.NET itself?
No, I mean the whole ASP.NET Core is enough.
No, that's not I was interested in the differences between the core. I was interested in what was left out of the original ASP.NET model to build the core.
There are some, like the original ASP.NET supports, like they have provide different models for building a web application. Like they have like web forms and some of those. So in ASP.NET Core, you can only have like web API, Razor page, and MVC.
So they have a complete implementation of the ASP.NET MVC. Razor comes as part of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a new thing.
So they just what they did was they eliminated all the old stuff.
Yeah.
That was,
Yeah, and re-implemented some of the other functionalities. It's not exactly as a cross-platform subset of ASP.NET Core, but kind of some of this functionality is a subset, but the others are like new. It's like .NET Core, which doesn't comes with like WCF and WPF, just a standard thing to make it cross-platform.
Good. Any questions for Wei-Jun? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Danming, are you done? Zidong. I'm sorry, Zidong.
Hi everyone, our project is a lightweight online judge for programming classes. Let's take a brief review of our project. Our project consists of 3 parts. The first one is web server, and the second is database server, and the second is a judge server. I won't show many slides for this demonstration. I will show our entire website instead. This is our online judge website. We use technology. We use MinStack technology to build this website. And in this website, we provide a convenience way for both students and professors to take programming courses. This is a home page. And this is a Frequent question is under construction. And this is a restraint page, which lists all the users that registered. And this is a problem list page. This is a problem detail page. And this is a queue page. This page lists all the submissions that users uploaded to the website. And there are many status for the submission. Queued means that this submission is waiting for grading. And here we have a ranking list, which now it's empty. Ranking page lists all the users in a descending order according to their current scores. And now let's start demonstration from registration.
And your demo will make sure that you're on top.
Okay.
I would if I were doing this.
Yeah. Because this is a private online judge website only for programming classes, so students should ask the passcode for problem access. Oh, okay, passcode. Sorry. Okay, now register is success. So after the registration, you get a personal key. This key is generated randomly. This personal key is very important. If you forget your password, you should remember this personal key to
You
get
failed the
access
course
to.
if you figured you
And currently, every user is registered as the administrator. This is only for demo. Now we try to add a new problem. Let's try A and B. I'm sorry. And here we can assign a point for this problem. And there are two grading methods. The first one is automatic grading, and the second one is manual grading. For automatic grading, the system will calculate the grades according to the results of each test case. And we can also give each problem a runtime limit. And here we have a sample. Sorry. And we can apply multiple test cases. And each test cases can be weight, their grading weight can be different. Okay, let's try the A1B case. Oh, let's try. Okay, here we have two problems. Let's try submit a solution. Our website supports two kinds of programming language, C and C++. And now we submit our for the judge part, we have wrote a Python program as a demo to judge each submission. Oh, okay. Now let's refresh this page. Okay, we got the result of each submission. Okay, let's click here. Okay, for this submission, there is a compile error, and let's see the ranking. Hey, oh, I'm on the top.
Sorry, David. You didn't do too well this time.
And we can also edit an existing problem by using the control panel. We can change the points. We can change the way it is graded, and we can also change the runtime limit. Currently, it is we can't change the test cases just on the web page. We have to go to the folder. So we're working on it. Okay. And we can. Okay, this is a demo for our website. As I said, we use MinStack to build this website. For the web server part, we use MinStack technology. For the judge part, we use a Python demo program that always running to make sure that every submission is graded. The judge server works with the database. It always scans the database. Each submissions. Each submission is marked as queued. That means they are not graded. When the Python program find a problem that is not graded, it then invokes the system compiler to get it compiled.
So your website is compiling them?
Yeah,
Yes.
and test them.
Okay.
And here is a compile output. If there is something generated in the console, that means there is a compiler error. Okay, just after the compiling, we test each submission. The first step to test a submission is to put them in the jail directory. This is for security consideration. And then we use a sandbox to test them. But currently, we borrowed the sandbox from another open source project. We are working on our own sandbox. This is just to show that everything else works fine, except the sandbox part. Okay.
So let me introduce like some basic like sign up and login function, and here in our database. So that's our user schema. So like just we saw that there's like name, password, use email. So it all like has like schema form to put in our MongoDB. And this is all the information we need when the user input their register information, and we output the schema. So we output the schema here, so that like we can create when we have a like new user want to register, we can use this model and put it into the like our MongoDB. So I will show like our logic of how it works, and in our routes. So like when like a client sign a form, that is a register form, and also we get it and we place into the request body, and then we will first see the passcode here, like if it's right, it is like authorized to register, and then if we can like it is authorized to run, and then we will pass all the value to the schema object, and then to find it, like we need to make sure that every username is unique. We need to find that if it exists, like to find the username whether it's already existing in the MongoDB, and if we like so it will return the result. If the result is like it exists, so it has something, it's not like 0, so the username is already exists, and you eject the register request. And if it does not exist, so you will give all other information to it, and then use the SHA 256 to encrypt the password, and then to digest to like a hexadecimal form to make sure you can write it to the database. And then we save it to MongoDB, and all it done. And like the DB will hold your users in all your information. And then when you next time you log in, so also like the server will place your requires body, and then and also you will because you input like your password, and then you will encrypt in the same way, and then to find it whether it exists. If it exists, so it will let you in to like our home page, and then with your information. And if you are wrong, so it will reject your request. So that's the basic login and register function. And then we put some, we put some like limitation here, because when you register, So we set a privilege level here. So like our all register here is like all like administrator. So you can add questions, put questions here. But we still try to figure out how to set this level for different users. Like if you are a student, you cannot register like administrator. So like you can like add questions, delete questions. That's not allowed here. And then, so
I'll continue to the judge part. Let me see, the judge part. So each problem each submission has its judge status as listed here. That is to say, this data will be saved in the database, the submission collection, and the web page will. Let me see.
So describe a little bit before we look at the code. Describe a little bit about how the judging process works.
Okay.
You know, words are okay. All right.
The judge server works with the database server. For each problem, let me show something a little bit more.
So, for example, we've got a problem that's been assigned.
Mm-hmm.
Are we judging it on the basis of its character by character output? So we're matching its output against a predefined solution?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's why our system can apply many test cases.
Yeah.
That's how it works. Yeah, sure.
There's one obvious issue that you would have if you tried to use this in a real classroom. There might be many correct solutions that would have slightly different text.
but we think like as a database, like data structure classes, like all the test case is unique, like is specific, like the output is specific. But
Data structures, you could
Mhm.
more likely to be
something
able to
yes.
handle that problem. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Maybe the professor may give some bonus parts if the program can pass the final test case, then he can get some bonus points. That's why we apply many test cases. So the judge server will scan the database, the submission collection, and list all the results. And invoke the system compiler to get the compiled result. And the next step is to invoke the sandbox. The sandbox, as I said, we borrowed an open project somewhere. So just so if the test results match the test case output, then the program then there is a then the result for this test case is marked as 1, and if it failed, it is 0. Here we can get the gradient, and then we update the test result to the database. And here we have a here we have, let me search that. Okay, and then there is the web server will scan the database, the submission collection again, to get the updated scores. So this is how our website works.
So, so just mention the submission. So also like it's also logic here. When when the client like posts a submission request, it's not post. So there's also like schema there. So we will put the content of the code, the content of the files to the database. So they just mentioned like the Python will run as like a service to scan the database. So when it comes, when a submission comes, so we will put all the data to the MongoDB database. That's how the data put it into the database. And you know, the Express the Express framework provide a function here, like you can place into the files you submitted using like request.files. So you can place into the files content in binary, and then you can get all the content, so write it directly to the database. So like the compiler will be easier to build like the file here. So
I would think it would be not too difficult to construct a map with a key as a user, student ID, or key code, or whatever it was. And the value is a list of all the projects and their status, so you don't have to poll.
okay.
So when you know, for each, you come in with a student key, some event happens, you come with a student key, and then you go to that part of the value, you know, and change the status on it. Just to, you know, I don't have any issue with what you're doing. It just seems like that would avoid the polling process, and
Okay, that makes sense.
that wouldn't have given you the chance to play around with Python a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. Any questions?
If you don't mind, could you just demonstrate the view part of the code?
What view?
View component. Yeah.
Which
The front end part. I mean,
the front end part? Okay, so we use Jade here. Which part?
I mean, how's the data binding happening? Like from front end to the back end? Like, are you using Angular?
Why don't and I tell you what, at the end of your discussion, let's pull up your system diagram, we'll talk about it a little bit, and then I think what Lakshmi is asking for is, you know, just to look at some of your screenshots and compare it to that.
This is our design for the online Jet server. We have a web server, a Jet server, and a repository server. In this demo, we did actually our demo follows the design. So we have every part, and all the solutions submitted by student are stored in the submission folder, which can be treated as a repository server. So this is our design.
And these pages aren't really views; they're pages that you've created.
Mm-hmm.
It's not doing a, you know,
Sorry.
Okay.
rendered view kind of.
So you are not using Angular in this thing because you said main stack, so that's what I was interested in.
Maybe we need to apply later, because for fast we use Jade here, like to our front end, because it's really fast, and the Angular we need to to calculate the score. Maybe we need to figure out like some like different test cases have different scores, so we need to do some little
logic later for our front end. So
I was wondering if you're using Angular, so I thought like how you did the single page application model in it. So because I wanted to implement in my system, so I thought I could borrow a little help from that.
no, not so much now. We also need to figure out. We just like a demo, like probably like something you can see here, like so some front end stuff like we're like mostly focused on back end. So
Thank you.
yep.
Okay.
So that's all for you. Thanks.
And I'll show our milestone, our timeline. So the only thing now we need to do is to implement our sandbox. So everything else works fine.
Okay. So all of the functionality works the way you had intended?
Yes.
Okay. And so the only thing that remains for you the rest of the semester is to try to get your sandbox
Yes.
working?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. In the final presentation, it would be nice if you added a little bit to the test data, and so we kind of got a flavor of how the flow would actually go over the
Okay.
course of the semester. I don't mean a huge number of test cases or anything, but just so we could
Actually, I have
talk about a
to.
feature and show the feature, talk about it, but it would be nice, not now,
Okay.
but at the final presentation, just, kind of walk us through the flow of the project, the way it would really work.
Okay. Thank you.
Both
Actually,
by the
okay.
students and the instructor.
Okay. Actually, we try very hard to make this website work. We get it down 10 minutes before this class.
Really? Well, good for you. You succeeded. You looked a little worried when you came in here.
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. Terrific.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions for these guys?
I was wondering, because since you're assuming that all the questions submitted by the instructor are fixed,
Mhm.
I guess, why you're comparing the output? You can just simply inject into a template, which you make instructor supply like a template, and then we inject the code into the as with an interface, so that you compile and directly run. You don't need any compile. You don't need any like output comparing.
We just copied what the lead code does. So we try to multiply many test cases.
Yeah,
So
but
you-
LeetCode obviously have I think they have a specific repository where they also do the injection. They just.
Already.
I think so. Isn't that what LeetCode?
I don't know.
So I think LeetCode does similar. You're basically writing code that inject into their repository,
Mhm.
and then they compile their program, and then they compare their output or something like that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I mean, if you're making it open, then I guess it really what I'm trying to convey is that if you assume that the problem is fixed,
Mhm.
then the comparing output wouldn't be is more like a big knife cutting a small thing.
Mm.
Does that make
Thank you.
sense?
This is a good idea. We'll try later.
I mean, if you're making it open, then that makes sense probably. But
Okay.
it's just my.
Okay. Thank you.
question. No, it's really a question, but yeah.
Yeah. As I said, we just copied what the lead code does.
Okay.
Maybe I'll try it later. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Okay, so on Tuesday, let's see what we're doing on Tuesday. Jianan is going to present on Tuesday. Is that right?
I think I'm masters.
I have you on the, I've messed around with these dates so many times. Oh, it is, I'm sorry, you're on Thursday, the 26th. 24th is Tuesday. So, Fred is on Tuesday. Yeah, Fred is on Tuesday, and another student who's doing this remotely is also going to present on Tuesday. Would it be possible, Shannon, for you to present on Tuesday if push came to shove? Could you manage that? Okay, all right. That's fair enough. I'm a little concerned about that other student. You know, I haven't seen much of him, so I think I don't know if he's going to really be ready either. So, who else is presenting on? So on the 26th. Eric Jiang is not here. He's presenting on the 26th. And Tihao Zing, yeah. Could you present on Tuesday if push came to shove?
Oh, I just really depends on certain things.
Okay. Don't worry about it then. I'm probably just being paranoid, you know, because this student who's doing this remotely hasn't been contacting me, you know. We scheduled this time, but I haven't heard anything else from him, so I'm a little concerned that he'll do too well. All righty, that's the game plan. And so on Thursday, and then, let's see, so we go Tuesday and Thursday. And the route is presenting on May 1st. So, yeah, okay. And then the Saturday and Sunday, which is the 5th and 6th, is that right? Whatever Saturday and Sunday is, the 5th and 6th, I think, is, we'll do all the final presentations. The final presentation, you know, I've told you I have a slide that says an ideal technology presentation looks like this, an ideal programming presentation looks like this. I haven't done the same thing for the final presentation. My model is that it is something fairly close to a combination of the two. That you're showing us some more, any of the code that wasn't finished you're going to demo, and you'll show us the overall flow of the project and how it works, and talk about, you know, you start out by talking about reminding us of what your project structure is, you know, what you're trying to do, what the parts look like and how they're connected together, and then demonstrating the parts you weren't able to demonstrate. You know, maybe a quick summary of here's what I showed you during the probes, and then here's what's left, and present that, and then wrap it up with a final. All right, and I've scheduled all day long, so I don't think we have to be too worried about timing. If you go a little over, I don't think that's going to be a problem, because we'll just keep going until everybody's finished. And I would like, if you present on the Saturday, I'd like you to be there for all the presentations on Saturday. But you don't have to come on Sunday. If you present on Sunday, I'd like you to be there for all the presentations on Sunday. The presentations start at 9 o'clock in the morning in this room. So on Saturday and Sunday, between the last day of classes and graduation. I think it's the 5th and 6th, whatever the dates are. And I am grading your project ones this weekend, so if you haven't turned it in yet, please try to get it in. You know, I'll accept them after this weekend, but I'm going to start counting late fees. So, I'd like you to do that. Okay. Any questions before we break? I'm finally getting some time for you guys this weekend. I have not been giving you guys as much attention as you deserve. My goal is to, on Tuesday, hand back your graded project ones and hand back the grade sheets for the 2 presentations you made so far. So, so you know where you are, what's cooking in the class. So, I'll try to do that. All right?
Great.
See you all on Tuesday. So now I was demonstrating the ATL structure. For the Linux, you don't have to implement this in the ATL structure. What I want is each component to have an interface and an object factory. It's typically part of the interface. So let's say object factory. Interface, they can be separated together, however you want to do it. And your file manager drives from its interface. There's a interface and object factory for this guy. Yeah, for this guy. And this guy, the text search implements that. And now the text search, so depending on whether it's push or pull, one of these guys has to have an interface pointer to the other guy. And I would like you to do what we did with Tom. You have to pass it through the interface. Okay. In order to satisfy the common separation rules, it's the marshalling ensures that if the data needs to be marshaled, it will get marshaled. But I'd like us to do the same thing. I'd like us to shift it. So where's the client here? This has
several lines.
So, the client is going to create each one of these using the factory. And that gives him a pointer. So, let's suppose that the text search is going to pull it. Could be the other way. And so, then, in this interface, it would be a way for the client to pass the, let's call this I file manager, and this is my text search. So then, this guy would take an I file manager pointer, or better yet, you have a top level abstract interface that these guys both but then, this guy pointer to this interface if you want. There's nothing wrong with passing the I-file manager interface to this guy, or vice versa if you want this guy. But that's. No. I just want you to have a component model that has the same isolation advantages and not the marshalling of stuff in the same as common. So you get a really clear idea of how you do that in C++. So my mental model was that, if I were doing, I would have done this first, and I would just written little com wrappers around each of that.
I got rid of the windows was a lot easier than the normal.
Good.
I like heightened it up in my head, so I thought it was really good.
Yeah, ATL, when what you want to do is what ATL wants to do for you, it's straightforward. And as long as connection points can get kind of tricky, but you didn't, no need to use that. So. All right?
Thank you.
Great.
Can I take that? Can I take a picture of this? Or do you guys-
Oh, you can have it.
Linux file. So my client loads a library of the file manager. Then he also loads a library dynamically of the text search component. Now to the text search component, he passes that file manager's objects pointer. But that seems to be not working. It says segment far from the code. So I'm not.
That means that the pointer isn't pointing to valid memory.
But when I try, it's working in the client when it's created the pointer, when I try to access the functions from it, it's working. But when I send it to the shared object and it's trying to use internally, then that's showing a code. So I couldn't figure out, like, spend a lot of time. So I thought there's some theory behind, like, whether a shared object can be using other functions.
This is in
shared
Linux,
objects.
on the Linux side.
I asked people, they said, like, many of the links and pointers to other component, the client does the integral with use such string to the file manager. They extract the results, they send the results to the text search component, who again searches the text line numbers and returns back. I was curious to do the same thing which I did in Windows, like sending the pointer to that particular object, file manager object, to text search, so that the text search can directly contact the component and extract the results.
Yeah.
I'll be there, I need to call someone.
So, what you should be doing, so when this guy, when you create one of the components, you're doing it with an object factory, and the object factory is returning a pointer to that instance.
The same thing.
What's happening, I'm quite sure, is that that would be a problem. The client and the dynamic link libraries that it's loading are not sharing the same heap. That's what I'm afraid is happening. I didn't expect that to be, but I'm.
So how does really the DLL gets loaded, like, in terms of?
It's not a problem loading not a problem with loading the DLLs, but if they use separate heaps, then the address on the pointer is pointing to the client's
heap, right?
heap.
So it's not allowed actually to be done. One process can't access memory.
There's almost certainly a way to get them to share heaps.
So would that be possible in Windows? I never tried that.
I've done it in Windows long enough ago that I don't remember all the details. I do remember having problems with different heaps, and I fixed it, and I don't remember what I did to fix it. What you could do is have the That's odd. You're loading the libraries, and then you are using the object factory.
I use the handle to get the object of the file manager. Once I
That's just giving you the file manager, and that should give you access to its factory function. See, it shouldn't matter whether they're in separate heaps or not, because what's happening is you've loaded the DLL into memory, and now the client is going and saying, create an instance of your implementing class, the class that implements this interface for me, and return a pointer to that. And it doesn't matter whether it's in the client's heap or in the object's heap, because whatever pointer you're going to get wherever that object was created.
So where is this
that
object
isn't the
located?
problem.
Is it in the file manager? The DLL has a separate memory, or like I think it's part of the client's memory, right? It just has a table.
Well, see, the client is loading the object into its own address space. It's running, it's in the process, it's in the client process. But if it's using, even if it's using separate heaps, that shouldn't cause you a problem because you're getting the object itself to create an instance. With the static creational function, it's creating an instance. And if it happens, if he's using a separate heap, it's creating it on his own heap. But the pointer you're sending back is the pointer to that heap.
Point to that heap, yeah. So, but even when I loaded the texture component, that's also being loaded to client heap space. So both the libraries are being.
Well, I mean, it's being loaded in the client, but if Linux is by default using a separate heap for each DLL and the client, then they're separate. If it's not, then they're the same.
So I didn't get this part because I haven't used much of Linux thing till now.
But I don't see why that would be a problem. I don't see why you're getting the segfault. I mean, you would get a segfault if you were using a pointer that pointed into one heap to try to access something in a different heap. But that's not what's happening because you're using the component's own factory. It's storing it wherever it stores it. It says new, and if that happens to be in the DLL's heap, okay. But the pointer's going to point to that DLL's heap.
Yeah, so this process is going to directly access the other processes heap. Is there I thought a process should run in isolation. Each process is not supposed to.
They're not separate processes. They're one process. They're all in the same process. They may be using separate heaps, but it's just a separate memory structure.
Okay. In that case, it should work.
I think it should work.
So I couldn't figure out much. So and I have one more question.
What I would suggest you do, I wouldn't spend a huge amount of time on it. What you should do, if you can't get that to work, then you can pass stuff back and forth between the client and that isn't.
Yeah, I actually
that
did that.
doesn't satisfy the requirement, and so you'll lose the requirement point on it.
Yeah, I did that thing, but I couldn't figure out like how to do that.
This, I'm going to be busy for a little while, but before you, is this your last semester?
No, sir.
You got another semester?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're going to be around this.
Yeah, but
You're going to be around this
yeah.
summer.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind taking a look at it. Just so you know, we could.
Yeah, I want to work for one more project also somewhere on the.
Yeah.
Because I was not capable enough to work for the last summer. I didn't have that much of knowledge. I was hoping that I can work this summer.
Well, I mean, you're not if you're talking about the summer project stuff, you're not really working on a project for me. You're working on, but you have a chance to talk about it. And,
yeah, I think that the last thing so it was great last summer, but I couldn't really work on much thing because the cross-platform was not much. I didn't have much of idea at that.
Yeah.
So, and one more question is like when you load the dynamic libraries, is there any order of dependencies? Like if there is the library which is going to use one more library.
That could be a problem. You can have problems with that. There's a way to fix it. I know how to fix that on Windows. I don't know how to fix it on Linux. What you really, to be on the safe side, I think it probably works right out of the box on Linux. Because Linux has a directory where it goes and looks for application libraries to load. And so if you put them both the library and its dependency, I think Linux will. What Windows uses, it doesn't use the same path that the DLL came from to look for dependencies, which is weird. So in Windows, there's an event handler, a load of failure event handler you can do, and you can, in that event handler, you can tell Windows where to look for that, and I've used that, but on Linux, I don't think that would be a problem. If you did have a problem, the safe thing would be to build those two, the part and this dependent part together.
Yeah, I have completed that part, like now I'm trying to figure out whether I can do it.
But it would be interesting, this summer you could try that and see, because I think it'll work almost right out of the box without a problem. It's Windows that's the problem, just because it has these screwy rules about why it doesn't go and look in the same directory that it loaded the DLL from. It's totally beyond me, but it won't. So you gotta catch the failure to build, the failure to load, and then direct it to the.
All right.
You have a question?
Yeah. So last Friday, and